6 teenage convicts showing no mercy in court. From school shootings to gruesome murders, these young offenders left a trail of destruction in their wake. You'll hear about their heinous crimes and the chilling reactions they showed in court as they were sentenced to life behind bars. Are you ready to witness some of the most shocking and disturbing cases in American legal history? In this video, we'll take a closer look at 6 teenage convicts who showed no mercy in court. Get ready to see the dark side of youth as we delve into the stories of these 6 teenage convicts. 1. Sierra. Sierra and her boyfriend killed her father in April 2021 in an attempt to flee. The teens stabbed holes in his body 70 times, tried to dismember him, burned his body, and stole his car. Today, they learn their fate in court. Your granddaughter is the murderer, and your son is the victim. Can you elaborate on that? For the murder of the girl's father, the girl and her boyfriend were each given a sentence of life in prison with the possibility of parole. Daniel Halstead, who was 45 years old, was killed, and both Sierra, who was 16 years old, and Guerrero have admitted to it. In the northwest area of Las Vegas, Daniel was found in the character of his home. When a district judge found Sierra and Guerrero guilty, he or she was each eligible for the maximum sentence of life in prison, with the possibility of early release after 22 years. To all the charges brought against them, including murder with a deadly weapon, arson, robbery with a deadly weapon, and conspiracy to commit robbery at full counsel, the 2 defendants entered guilty pleas today. In the meantime, the question appears to be faltering. Why the CRC board might even be a little worn out. Perhaps there is more to her than meets the eye. There is one certainty: she isn't laughing anymore. 2. Philip Chisholm. On the 22nd of October 2013, a 9th grader at Danvers High School, Massachusetts, known by the name Philip Chisholm, committed an unforgivable crime. At just 14 years of age, he murdered his 24-year-old math teacher, Colleen Ritzer. The reportedly cheerful Ritzer was known to go out of her way to assist her students with math and had asked Chisholm to remain in school after school hours. Little did she know that fateful day in October was her very last. After school hours ended, Chisholm followed Ritzer into a school toilet. He then flung a box cutter, robbed, raped, and mercilessly murdered her. To cover it all up, he then rolled her body in a garbage can to the woods behind the school. Chisholm indeed had absolutely no guilt for his actions, and he was later seen going to town. He even bought a movie ticket using Ritzer's credit card. When police finally got a hold of him the next morning, Chisholm had still not washed the blood off his hands. Ritzer's blood was still all over them. Speaking of his early life, Chisholm had recently moved from Tennessee to Danvers, Massachusetts, where he wasn't all that famous, apart from being known for being good at soccer. In one of his reports, he was said to be antisocial and really exhausted and out of it. The reports also say that his mother was going through a difficult divorce at the time of the crime. Ritzer, however, was a beloved member of the faculty. The students she taught claimed that she was always positive and happy. Surprisingly, a student overheard Ritzer complimenting Chisholm on his drawing skills at the end of class, and then requested that he stay after school so she could help him prepare for an upcoming test. This shows that there was no beef or negative emotion between the two either. However, Chisholm then reportedly grew notably offended at Ritzer when she spoke of his move from Tennessee, according to Boston Magazine. Ritzer then changed the subject, but the student who witnessed this entire scenario also observed Chisholm having a conversation with himself. It was only a couple of hours later that he committed this heinous crime. Chisholm was caught on camera and seen to come back into the school after hiding the body in a backyard and raping a lifeless body, wearing a different black shirt and glasses, and also carrying a pair of bloody jeans. In court, Philip Chisholm was finally convicted for the murder, aggravated rape, and armed robbery of his own schoolteacher, Colleen Ritzer. For some reason, he was given a chance was tried as an adult, and on February 26 in the year 2016, he was sentenced to serve at least 40 years in prison. To the sentences to jail, Philip showed no emotion of remorse, regret, or even a response. He was completely emotionless, as if he hadn't done anything at all. 3. Antonio Barbeau and Nathan Pape. The life of a teenage boy convicted of killing his great-grandmother in 2012 was upheld in the Wisconsin Appeals Court for his heinous and vicious crime committed on the assistance of one of his acquaintances. The 2nd District Court of Appeals completely denied an appeal by Antonio Barbeau, who was only around 15 years old. He was only 13 at the time of the attack and was sentenced in a way that the only time he will be able to taste freedom again would be in his 50s. Barbeau shamelessly argued that his sentence was cruel and unfair, but the appeals court firmly stood by its sentence, confirming a decision by the Sheboygan County Circuit Court. Barbeau in turn pleaded no contest to first-degree intentional homicide in the September 2012 death of 78-year-old Barbara Olson. During this inhumane crime, Olson was struck with a hatchet and a hammer right in her home. A 13-year-old boy called Nathan Pape assisted Antonio during this incident and was also sentenced to life in prison. Conrad Schaefer. The next vicious crime on the list includes that of a father of a Florida teen accused of ruthlessly murdering 2 people during a month-long shooting spree. They now face felony charges for purchasing the gun used in the slayings for this 15-year-old son and allowing him access to the weapon and hundreds of rounds of ammunition. Only here, it wasn't the father who had anything to do with the murders, it was his son. Conrad Schaefer, along with his accomplices, gunned a young student in the head after luring him into hiding. In court, he admitted to using the gun even after his father instructed him not to do so. Terry Nichols. Terry Nichols is an American convicted of being involved in the Oklahoma City bombing that occurred on April 19, 1995. The bombing was a terrorist attack that targeted the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City, killing 168 people and injuring hundreds more. Nicholas was a former United States Army soldier who met Timothy McVeigh at Fort Benning, Georgia. Together, they planned and executed the bombing. Nichols was arrested on April 21, 1995, 2 days after the bombing. In 1997, Nicholas was found guilty in federal court of conspiracy to use a weapon of mass destruction and 8 counts of involuntary manslaughter of federal law enforcement officers. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Nicholas was also tried in Oklahoma State Court on 161 counts of first-degree murder and was found guilty of 161 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, and 1 count of first-degree manslaughter. He was sentenced to 161 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. Nicholas is currently serving his sentences in a maximum security prison in Florence, Colorado. Michael J. Devlin. Michael J. Devlin is an American kidnapper and child molester who was convicted for a series of high-profile crimes in Missouri, United States. In 2007, he was arrested and charged with kidnapping 2 boys, Sean Hornbeck and Ben Ownby, who were both missing for several days before being rescued from Devlin's apartment. Devlin was ultimately sentenced to multiple life terms in prison after pleading guilty to charges related to the kidnappings and sexual abuse of the 2 boys. His sentence also included a restitution order of more than $1.4 million to the victims and their families. Regarding the court reaction, it was reported that during the sentencing hearing, several family members of the victims gave emotional impact statements, expressing their outrage and disgust at Devlin's crimes. The judge also condemned Devlin's actions, describing them as heinous and despicable. Michael Carneal. Michael Carneal is an American who, in 1997, committed a school shooting at Heath High School in West Paducah, Kentucky. At the time of the shooting, Carneal was 14 years old. Carneal opened fire on a group of students participating in a prayer circle, killing 3 and injuring 5 others. He was arrested and charged with murder and attempted murder. During his trial, Carneal's defense team argued that he suffered from mental illness and was not capable of understanding the consequences of his actions. However, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Regarding court reactions, some family members of the victims gave emotional impact statements during the sentencing hearing, expressing their grief and anger at Carneal's actions. The judge presiding over the case described Carneal's actions as heinous and stated that he had caused irreparable harm to the community. Carneal has been incarcerated in Kentucky since his conviction and remains in prison serving a sentence. These 6 teenage convicts showed no mercy in their crimes and faced the consequences in court. May their stories serve as a reminder of the importance of prevention and rehabilitation to ensure a better future for our youth and society. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one.